All right, so we're now in part four of this learning session of on writing proposals for GAVI, right? So in this part four, we'll be looking at creating monitoring and evaluation plan. We start from the developing result framework, then creating monitoring and evaluation plan. The monitoring and evaluation plan, and in fact, result framework itself is a very important component of every proposal. I can tell you that result frameworks alone is the entire proposal at a glance. Most of the times, it's safer to first of all build your result framework after defining your problems and objectives before ever you start your proposal narratives, because your result framework is going to guide your entire narrative. Why this is important is that even someone who has not seen your let's say 20-page proposal document can pick up your result framework and implement that project, because it is your entire proposal at a glance, right? If it is done well. So that is how important the result framework is. And it is also the basis for monitoring and evaluation, because it contains all the data for your indicators and all that you need to collect field data that will enable your monitoring system, right? So the result framework shows how your project creates measurable change. It is the change that your project is going to create is contained in your results framework. Outside all the long grammar you've spoken in your narrative part, it is your result framework that defines them properly in a way that any person who is in charge of implementing that project can easily understand and follow. So in that result framework, you will need to list out your outcomes, your outputs, your indicators, and targets, right? Now, I want us to understand what these things mean. What are outcomes? It's not just enough to say outcomes. We need to understand what it really is. What are outputs? You need to understand what they really are, right? They all talk to results. Whether they are outcomes or outputs, they are all results. So they all talk about the results that you intend to achieve with your project. But the difference between outcomes and outputs is that outputs refers to immediate results from your activities. Of course, you know that it is through your activities that you create the change. It is by implementing the activities that you are attempting to solve the problems that you've defined. But you expect that something is going to happen as a result of that activity. And those things that are going to happen or change are called results. Now, these results could be outputs, they could be outcomes, they could also be impact. Whether we define the result as outputs, outcomes, or impact depends on at what point in the life of your project that those results are going to be seen or are planned to be seen, right? So results that you will see immediately or the shortest time possible as a result of an activity are referred to as outputs. For example, if you train people as an activity and you expect that their skills will be changed, their knowledge will be changed. What they know before that training and what they know after the training will not be the same. So that change in knowledge or skill will be an output because they are the immediate result of an activity. But what happens after? Is it just change or improving in skill or knowledge, does that change the underlying problem that you are planning to solve? It is only a step towards solving the problem. It doesn't automatically change the underlying problem that you want to solve. But that skill will enable them to be able to do something more to change and to create the next level of result, which is outcome. So outcome at this point becomes not the immediate result, but the intermediate result. So the outcome is the second level result, while output is the first level result of an activity. Right? Then the impact is the long-term result. So it is both your output and your outcome, different outcome for different objectives that work together to achieve the ultimate long-term result of your project, which we refer to as the impact of your project. So these are different levels of results, and it's important that you understand this because they will help you in your proposal development. Now, for each result, there should be indicator, because you cannot simply say this result has taken place. You are the one in the field. You are the one implementing. GAVI is not there with you. The person who will be reading your report is not there with you. So you need to give that person something that he will use to know that the result you say you will achieve has been achieved. And they must be verifiable. They are called indicators, or objectively objective indicators, right? Verifiable indicators. Do you understand? So then, at what time are you expecting to see these results? Is also very important, right? So, and that is why your results, your indicators must be defined within a particular time frame. You may not wait until the end of your project before you see certain results. So that's why you have targets, you have milestone. Milestone is a event that indicates your result at some point before the end of the project or before the time the long-term result is seen. Something that is a pointer that we are moving towards the ultimate result. So you need to also define your outputs, your outcomes, and for each of the outputs and outcomes, you also need to define their indicators. And it's only indicators that make them measurable. If you simply say that you want to improve the immunization coverage among children, for example, yes, it shows that something is going to change. But what are the metrics? How do you know? You have already identified from your problem statements how many children in that particular local government did not have access to immunization. So that number needs to reduce. The number of those without access to number of those zero-dose children need to reduce to show that your project is working. So if there were 4,000 children in that particular local government, your project should be able to reduce this to say 1,000 at the end of your project. But between the beginning of the project and the 21-month period, what will happen in between, say in 10 months time, 6 months time, in 12 months time, to show that the numbers are reducing? So if your target is to reduce it to 1,000, reasonably we should expect that sometime in 6 months or 1 year period, it should have reduced from that 4,000 to say 3,000 or 2,000 or something somewhere in between, to show that a progress is being made. That is called your milestone. You get that? So the indicators must be able to show the numbers or the metrics. It could be the number of children immunized, or the percentage of children immunized, however it is, it's only by numbers that you measure. You must be able to show how you measure them, either in how the numbers reduce or how the percentage reduce, however you want to do that. But they have to be measurable, that's the point. And you have to tie your indicators to a particular time frame to show your milestone and your target. If your ultimate target is reduced from 4,000 to 1,000, your milestone could be something. If you have only one milestone in between, it could be something like 2,000. If you have several milestones, at first milestone, it could be from 4,000 to 3,000. It could be the next could be from 3,000 to 2,000 at different points until you get to the end of the project. So these are the ways that you make your progress measurable. So when you are building your results framework, you must also make sure that you include numbers and percentages that makes them measurable. But again, it's very important that you keep them realistic. So based on the amount of funds that are available and the logistics involved, are you sure that the volume of reduction that you are putting on paper are realistic? So they have to be realistic. Your target has to be realistic. And remember that you are not just going to say this has been achieved at the end. You must also show means of verifying that they've been achieved. And you have to define these two in your results framework. So here are a few examples of indicators you can use as far as this proposal for GAVI is concerned. It could include number of zero-dose children identified and vaccinated. As an example, you must not use this, but I think this is relevant to the proposal that you are writing. Number of zero-dose children identified and vaccinated. You see, in this one indicator, there are two metrics that can be used. The number of zero-dose children identified, it could also be the percentage of those identified who also received vaccination. In this way, someone should be able to track the progress or the results that your project is creating based on the numbers. It could also be the number of children vaccinated with DTP1 or DTP3. So it's not just general vaccination, but make it specific. Number of children vaccinated with DTP1 or DTP3. It could also be the number of households engaged in immunization session. It's up to you, but they have to be directly linked to the problem you've identified. So if your problem have been centered on maybe, for example, lack of information about the information at the household level, about the caregivers don't have the information about where to go for immunization. Of course, to measure your progress, you must also make your progress be relatable to the problem that the household is facing that deny their children access to vaccination. So the important thing here, the examples I'm giving here must not feature in your own, but if they have to feature, you must make sure that there is also information in your problem statement that they are linking to. Right? That's the point. Another example could be improvement in facility data accuracy. That's for those who are targeting the third priority, which is facility level data. So the important thing, whatever priority you are focusing on and whatever results and indicators that you are designing, they need to be simple, they need to be specific, they need to be verifiable. Don't use bogus language. Use language that anybody can read and understand what you mean. So, and they need to be verifiable too. Ensure that the source of verification is something that you'll be able to generate. Maybe health records within the facility. It's possible. So it means that your project, if they were not keeping record before, your project should be able to help them establish records so that if anybody wants to verify, they can go back to the record. You can also have a copy of the record attached to your report to show that something has changed over a period of time, right? So now think about how you will collect this information. Like I've given an example, it could be from the health records, right? So how you collect the information for verification will depend on the kind of indicators that you've selected or used, right? So for example, if I've used the number of children vaccinated, of course, that information should be contained in the facility record. If you are using the number of households engaged, maybe through health information, well, it could be your organization could be able to generate that information, maybe the record that you keep, the register, the attendance register that you've created. Those things can be, which they have to write their names and sign. So those things can also be a means of verification, right? So everything depends on the type of results that you've created and the verification information that you plan to generate. So this information for verification is not only helping in verification, but it's also helping you in monitoring your own progress, because you have already defined the results you want to achieve. You've also defined the indicators, you've also defined the milestone. As your own internal management mechanism, you should be able to keep records that will help you with internal monitoring. Know the right data to collect for each activity and use them to measure your progress. To know what has changed according to plan and what has not changed. And remember, we're talking about monitoring and learning, not just monitoring. Monitoring simply means collecting data from the field that we use to inform management decision. And so because it's going to inform management decision, it means that it's not just collecting data, but you are also going to learn from the data to know whether the way you assume that is going to work, is it working that way? If it's not working, what wrong assumption were made, and how are you going to change that assumption going forward? So that is the essence of collecting data for monitoring, evaluation, and learning. I'm sure I'm making sense here, right? I'm trying to break it down in the simplest way that I can. So GAVI values learning and adaptation. Learning and adaptation. What this means is you learn from data you collect, and your data should be able to show you what is working well according to your original assumption and what is not working well, meaning that you've made the wrong assumption, but you're now learning something from your data that will help you to adapt your system. So in your report too, you need to highlight this to show that lessons have been learned, and you use the feedback from those lessons to improve your performance. So next, we'll talk about work plans, budgets, and sub-grants, and that will be in the next part 5. So for now, you have known the tools that you need to build logical frameworks. You've known the tools you need to build monitoring plan that shows that you have clear accountability for your results. So in the next part 5, we'll look at the practical side of creating your work plan, your budget, and of course, within your budget, the sub-grant arrangement with the CBO that you're partnering with. See you in next part 5.